We've talked about parameters that define how much a block can hold. Today's parameter is about how much a block can think. And I love this idea because it's one of the places where the Cardano blockchain starts to feel almost alive. Each block has a fixed amount of computation it's allowed to perform, and once it hits that limit, boom, pencils down, no more thinking. That limit is today's star, max block X steps. I'm Stephanie from Two Lovelaces and Lido Nation, and whether you're a developer, a dApp user, or someone who just casually wondered, why did my transaction wait for the next block? This parameter is going to explain a lot. Cardano has over 40 network parameters, each shaping how the blockchain behaves. If max block X mem was all about the memory budget, how much a block can store, max block X steps is the CPU budget, how much a block can compute. When a smart contract runs, it's processed inside a special interpreter. As it executes each line of logic, the interpreter counts steps. The steps aren't milliseconds, they're not actually CPU cycles, they're abstract units inside of Cardano's cost model, a predictable, deterministic way of measuring how much work a contract performs. And every block has a limit on these steps. Too many, the transaction fails. If the whole block goes over the step limit, the block is invalid. I've definitely had days where my brain hit the max steps limit before lunchtime, so I get it. So here's the thing. The block can't think indefinitely. Validators, that's block producers, need to process blocks quickly, consistently, and on hardware that isn't a supercomputer. If one block tries to do too much computation, it slows down the whole network. So max block X steps keeps block from turning into overachievers that break decentralization. And that number, by the way, is huge, 20 billion steps per block on mainnet. That sounds like a humongous number, but in practice, a single Plutus script interaction might use tens of thousands of steps. That means a block can fit dozens of smart contracts, depending on the complexity. If there's a governance proposal, a staking reward claim, a minting action, each one takes steps. And if too many step-heavy transactions hit the mempool at once, some will get bumped to the next block. This is why sometimes your transaction is instant, and sometimes it just kind of sits there, politely waiting its turn. For developers, this parameter is a big deal. It's a hard ceiling, which means smart contract code must be optimized to be lean, efficient, and thoughtful. The more efficient your code, the more of your transactions can fit in a single block. That's why Cardano devs use Plutus cost estimators, benchmark tools, and profiling techniques, all to make sure their scripts stay within step limits. Here's the forward-looking part. Cardano was built with the expectation that these parameters would evolve. As node software gets faster, as new optimizations land, as upgrades like pipelining and input endorsers spread out the workload, the step budget can increase without overloading validators. And now that Cardano has on-chain governance, anyone can propose a change. With evidence, rationale, and community support, max block X steps can scale with the network. So what's the big takeaway? If max block X mem parameter is the block's backpack, then max block X steps is the block's brainpower. It defines how much thinking a block can do before it needs a breather. Not enough computation and the dApps feel cramped. Much computation and the network risks slowing down. It defines how much thinking a block can do before it needs a breather. It's a balancing act, and it's one we can tune together as Cardano grows. Because a blockchain that can think just the right amount, that's a blockchain that can scale. Before you go, I asked Suno.ai to give us a, quote, euphoric pop ballad about max block X steps, and it delivered. So here it is.
In the quiet of the network, where the logic comes alive, there's a heartbeat in the protocol that keeps the chain in stride. Every line, every promise, every function we compose takes a tiny step of thinking as the block begins to grow. And we're counting every movement like a rhythm in the code. If we push too hard, too suddenly, the system overloads. But there's beauty in the balance, in the limits that we keep. 'Cause even brilliance needs a boundary, sketching out the block's new days. But for now we move in rhythm with the steps we know by name. Max Block X steps guiding every dancer in the chain. 20 billion steps tonight. Feel the spark, the steady rise. Every limit has a purpose. Every ceiling has its skies. 20 billion thoughts we share. Every note and every prayer. Hold the chain in perfect time with the mind that's always fair. There's a cadence in the network. There's a